Chosen one, the proof that you are in demand is not a chorus, it is a whisper that multiplies. It begins where you are not, at tables you left, in lobbies you crossed, in kitchens that keep the real minutes of a night. Someone mentions you lightly, as if for inventory. Someone else settles their voice and says, actually, and the air makes room. They do not trade statistics, they trade feeling. He didn't hurry me, he remembered without keeping score. I laughed and didn't have to heal from it later. I felt like myself. In a barter economy of relief, your name has become a currency that buys peace. The whispers happen in many dialects. Two friends walking home under streetlights reenact your presence with their posture. One drops her shoulders to show how it felt. A message thread lights up after midnight with the kind of honesty that only follows safety. They compare notes without competition. An older sister debriefs a first date with a protective affection, trying to locate the red flags that never showed. A barista tells a coworker, I like when he's in line. The whole place is kinder for 3 minutes. A colleague admits that meetings end faster when you're there, not because you rush, but because you refuse theater. A child in a lobby smiles at you and parents notice because children vote early with their instinct. In each scene, your name moves like a password that lets gentleness into rooms it used to be turned away from. Whisper is not shyness, it is stewardship. The women who speak your name this way are curators of their circle's safety. They do not advertise men, they verify climates. They are not promoting you, they are protecting one another from scarcity and spectacle. Scarcity tells them to compete. Spectacle tells them to perform exhaustion as glamour. The whisper refuses both. It says, here is a man who is not renting his worth from your attention. Here is a man whose boundaries make it easier to keep your own. Here is a man who treats consent like music and privacy like architecture. The whisper saves everyone time. There's a network effect to decency, and you are watching it from the outside without knowing it has your signature. The friend of a friend you barely met already has an opinion of you, sourced from a woman whose courage you guarded without asking for credit. The coworker who declined coffee last month has said yes this month because a trusted voice told her yes would not become a contract. The one who thought your calm was a strategy now suspects it is a value because your absence behaved the same way as your presence. You did not author these conclusions. You authored conditions. Conditions write their own reputation. Inside the circles that whisper, small audits are always running. They notice whether your kindness scales when nobody is looking, whether your tone honors the person cashing you out as much as the person inviting you in, whether your humor spends the absent to buy the present's approval, whether your pace turns desire into a negotiation or allows it to remain an invitation. You keep passing the audits because you are not studying for them. You are studying your craft, coherence. Coherence makes rumor boring and memory accurate. Accurate memory becomes testimony. Testimony becomes introduction. Demand begins with, I think you two should meet. There are gatekeepers in every commons, friends who have suffered enough to become fierce on behalf of those they love. They do not advertise their vigilance, but it is their daily work. Your name has begun to pass their checkpoints. They bring their skepticism like a stone to the scale of your behavior and watch it balance without theatrics. They watch you end while kindness still has posture. They watch you refuse applause you did not earn. They watch you apologize without renting the stage for your remorse. They watch you decline shortcuts that would have purchased now with tomorrow. They give the nod. Their nod is not fame, but it is favor, and favor moves in places fame cannot afford. You cannot choreograph these whispers, but you can steward the life that produces them. Stewardship looks unglamorous from the ground. It is replying so worry doesn't have to invent your silence. It is naming your intention before it becomes someone else's assignment. It is keeping your no early so your yes stays clean. It is checking in with the friend who contradicts you because you'd rather be corrected than congratulated for drifting. It is making room for the quiet person in a circle because greatness that excludes gentleness is counterfeit. These acts have no PR department. They do their work in the hush. And hush carries further than hype when hearts compare notes. Do not be fooled by louder names. Loudness is not proof of demand, it is proof of marketing. Demand measured by whisper lasts longer because it is attached to memory, not to stimulation. Memory is the archive the soul consults when deciding where to risk again. You are becoming an archive entry titled Usable Man. Usable not as tool, but as place. A usable place is one where dignity does not have to pay admission and joy does not leave a bill. Women return to places like that, and they write directions for their friends. Your unawareness is part of why the whisper remains clean. If you made a project of your reputation, the whisper would have to defend you instead of describe you, and that is labor love cannot afford. Let your reputation remain the byproduct of repetition. Let the ones who speak your name spend it as they see fit without feeling managed. Resist the urge to curate what you cannot hear. The moment a man becomes a salesman of himself, the whisper turns into weather about someone else. Weather returns to those who keep their sky honest. As the circle of whisper widens, opportunities will arrive disguised as tests. You will be invited to rooms that reward shortcuts. You will be offered applause you did not earn. You will be tempted to harvest the credibility others loaned you by moving faster than consent, brighter than privacy, heavier than dignity can hold. Decline every bargain that tries to make you interesting at the expense of being true. The whisper will adjust accordingly. It will add a line. I watched him choose integrity when convenience smiled. That line is worth 10 headlines because it becomes policy in the minds of those who hear it. There is responsibility that comes with becoming a name people protect. It is not the responsibility to be perfect. It is the responsibility to be repairable and consistent, to stay interruptible by truth and available to quiet, to remain more interested in lowering the price of being human than in raising the volume of your myth. When you fail, fail at a speed that lets dignity keep up. When you succeed, succeed at a volume that lets others hear their own courage. When you leave, leave a room that functions better because you were there, not a crater shaped like your need to be missed. Listen closely, even if you cannot hear it. The whisper is doing civic work on your behalf. It is making the commons kinder by reminding people what is possible between strangers. It is making the market less predatory by proving that attention can be offered without invoice. It is convincing the tired that rest is purchasable in proximity to steadiness. It is teaching newcomers that chosen ones do not hoard their goodness, they circulate it. Your only task is to keep the source clean. Everything else is echo. One day, someone will break protocol and say out loud what the whisper has been saying for months. You will be tempted to answer with false modesty or pride. Choose neither. Receive it with the quiet smile of a craftsman who knows the hinge sits flush because he hung it right. Then go back to hanging hinges. The whisper will keep doing what the whisper does, moving your name, not as a brand, but as a blessing, into rooms where relief is currency and you are, without trying, the tender they trust. Chosen one, there is a difference between being still and being stuck. Stones are stuck. Oceans are still when they decide to be, and their quiet draws moons into confession. Your calm does not announce itself as resistance, it becomes a center, and centers invite orbit. This is the gravity you carry when you refuse to be yanked by every tug of urgency or baited by every invitation to prove yourself. Gravity is not loud, it does not posture. It keeps its own counsel, and by keeping it, teaches the rest of the room how to breathe again. You are not unmovable. You are unmoved by the wrong things. The eye roll that used to recruit your temper now finds no purchase. The sudden praise that once turned you theatrical now lands where gratitude can handle it without converting it into entitlement. The silence that used to feel like a verdict has become a field where meaning grows when it is not harvested too early. Nothing here is passive. Between stimulus and response, you have built a cathedral. Breath enters, counsel echoes, memory of your values sits up straight, and by the time words arrive, they belong to you rather than to the moment's panic. Feminine women read this gap the way sailors read tides. They do not need an explanation for why their bodies unclench. They feel that your temperature will not be set by their fear, and that is safety of a rare kind. Gravity does work without argument. When a conversation tries to speed into accusation, your pace establishes a human tempo and turns debate back into dialogue. When a party's noise begins to bully the shy into disappearing, your presence creates a low-pressure system where quiet voice finds a microphone. When a flirtation attempts triangulation, as if desire were more alive when it recruits a witness, you do not play the part spectacle has written for you. You stay true to one gaze at a time, one truth at a time, one consent at a time. Games require oxygen to survive. Your composure is altitude. They cannot breathe there. Unmoved is not the same as unimpressed. You are allowed to wonder. You are allowed to be astonished and to say so. But your awe has learned manners. It bows to dignity first. Beauty does not have to become a trophy to exist near you. Power does not have to audition cruelty to feel alive around you. The woman across from you recognizes this immediately. Your attention is not a net. It is a lamp. Lamps don't capture, they reveal. Unmoved men reveal what is true without kidnapping it for their legend. And in a marketplace that monetizes capture, revelation becomes revolutionary. Consider the ordinary moments where your gravity proves itself. The server gets your order wrong and your face refuses to hire humiliation to make a point. A colleague tries to outsource their anxiety to your schedule, and you answer with boundaries that are doors, not walls. A friend confesses a failure, and you do not turn their moment into a sermon about your resilience. You make space where shame can put down its bag and sit for a minute without being robbed. These are not dramatic scenes. They are load-bearing beams. Women learn from them that you will not recruit their softness to fix you, nor their strength to survive you. They learn that you are the kind of man who can be near any weather without becoming a weather event. There is physics in your posture. Shoulders awake, but unarmed. Eyes that meet without consuming. Jaw unclenched so words can be chosen, not discharged. Hands that are useful before they are busy. Your body says what your mouth later confirms. I am here to hold, not to spin. In crowds, this creates what a pilot would call a reference point, something stable against which motion can be measured. People do not become slower around you, they become truer to their own pace. A woman in your orbit finds herself speaking less quickly, laughing more honestly, and saying the second sentence, the one that only appears when the first has been received rather than graded. She leaves with a memory that does not require editing to look good later. That memory is the demand you do not yet know how to count. Gravity also shows up when you are provoked. The slight that once sent you searching for an audience now meets a steward who asks, "What will repairing this cost the future?" If the price is too high for everyone, you let it pass. If a correction is needed, you size force to harm rather than to your pride. You are capable of anger that is clean, hot enough to sterilize a wound, not so hot that it burns tissue that could heal. This is not rhetorical elegance, it is disciplined power. The feminine have met many men whose energy becomes dangerous when contradicted. Your energy becomes precise. Precision earns trust, and trust is currency rarer than beauty. Detachment is a cousin to your gravity, but you keep it honest. You are not above the room. You are beneath it like a foundation. The difference is felt in what you ask of others. Indifference makes other people prove they are worth staying for. Gravity makes staying the default and leaving the decision that must prove itself. Indifference refuses delight to avoid risk. Gravity permits delight because risk has already been priced into the structure. The chosen ones understand this distinction and train it into their bones until their presence stops creating work for everyone else's nervous system. Your calm then becomes public infrastructure. Hallways change when you cross them. Even your digital life obeys this law. You do not let the speed of a screen colonize the speed of your soul. You refuse to become available at rates that would make your presence counterfeit. A message unanswered is not a test. It is a timing issue. A thread turning cruel does not win your cleverness. It receives your absence. You do not make a stage out of another person's confession, nor do you drag them into a stage you built out of your loneliness. What you are online matches what you are in line. That sameness is gravity too. It prevents vertigo for anyone who has to navigate you across contexts. Gravity grows out of rituals, not rhetoric. Sleep that lets patience resurrect, water that keeps words from traveling sharp, counsel that can contradict you before the world has to, Sabbath that reminds you you're a person and not a product, endings that save tomorrow from paying for tonight. Keep these. They are the quiet pulleys and levers that make your steadiness scalable. Without them, even good men spin. With them, your unmoved core remains generous rather than rigid. In that generosity, attraction becomes safe to trust because it is not being drafted into an emergency. You will not feel your own gravity the way others do. The Earth does not feel the orbit it requires, but you can recognize its signs. Rooms settle, jokes become kind without losing teeth, plans end on time without resentment, disagreements survive, goodbyes land softly. A woman's laugh returns to her like a bird that found its branch again. These are your signatures. Be proud of them with the craftsman's pride that smiles when a hinge sits flush. And keep being unmoved by the wrong things so that everything right can move through you. The kindness that does not curdle into performance, the strength that does not need a victim, the warmth that does not spend anyone to stay warm. Chosen one, self-respect is not a mirror you stare into. It is a tuning fork you strike. Once struck, the whole room hears the note, even if no one names it. You do not walk around reminding people how you should be treated. You walk around treating yourself in ways that teach the room what is possible. Schedules shape, tone steadies, money tells the truth, appetite learns the grammar of consent, and the air, ordinary air, changes its mind about what it will allow. What returns to you from that air is the echo. It sounds like eased shoulders, like measured requests, like apologies that arrive on time, like laughter that does not require a casualty. The women who can hear such music hunger for its source because it frees them to keep their own songs. Self-respect began for you in secret places. You decided that morning belonged to breath before it belonged to headlines. You decided that your body deserved your care before anyone else's admiration. You decided that your words should weigh enough to hold a day together. None of these decisions made a post. All of them made a person. You became predictable in the right ways. Predictably kind, predictably precise, predictably uninterested in turning attention into oxygen or affection into leverage. This predictability didn't make you boring, it made you legible. Legibility is safety, and safety is attractive to anyone tired of negotiating for the right to be human. The echo begins where you put your time. You no longer give minutes to people or platforms that cannot return them as anything but adrenaline. You give them to craft, to study that fattens compassion faster than certainty, to friendships that can contradict you without losing access, to play that does not need to be published to be real. When someone asks for more of you than you can faithfully give, your no arrives early and kind. It is not a punishment. It is a boundary that protects the version of you they most want to be around. A woman feels that no and hears, "I will not ask you to parent my capacity." In that hearing, her want becomes safer to trust because it will not be taxed later by your regret. Self-respect speaks in your money as fluently as in your mouth. You tip with math, not mood, because gratitude should be legible. You return what you borrow a little better than you received it, so that care accrues in the commons rather than costs. You refuse to monetize your contrition or outsource responsibility to a caption. You allow budgets to tell the truth about your values, and where the numbers don't match the talk, you change the numbers. None of this is glamorous, all of it echoes. The person watching you in line decides to be gentler with the barista after you are gone. The friend who sees you honor a small bill with dignity suddenly believes a big promise can be kept. Echoes travel. The echo also leaves your mouth through accuracy. You praise with topography instead of fog. Specific enough to build on, humble enough to keep the gift from turning into a bill. You correct in ways that protect the person while naming the problem. You apologize in the active voice and then alter the conditions that made apology necessary. You decline gossip without sanctimony by blessing the absent or changing the subject with humor that doesn't require a volunteer to bleed. Women notice quickly when a man's sentences do not require recovery time. Recovery is expensive. You have lowered the price. Demand follows lowered prices like rivers follow grade. Desire respects you because you respect it. You do not let hunger draft you into hurry or into fog. You let wanting announce itself and then you set a table at the right pace. You ask what consent sounds like in this room, and you keep it audible the whole evening. You do not make intrigue a pretext for ambiguity about your intentions, nor do you make clarity a pretext for pressure. You are capable of a smile that invites without annexing, of a touch that asks a question rather than assumes an answer, of a departure that leaves dignity intact rather than leaving mystery weaponized. The echo here is relief. She leaves with her softness and her schedule intact. Self-respect is architectural. It arranges your space so that your future self will be grateful for your past self's hospitality. Sleep ready to receive you, clothes that don't make war on your morning, food that does not recruit your mood as a hostage, a desk that invites work rather than excuses. It arranges your digital room too. Notifications tamed so attention remains spendable, conversations kept where they belong rather than dragged into every corner, flirtations answered at the speed your integrity can sustain. Architecture is not asceticism. It is a kind of kindness that scales. Guests feel it. They will not call it by name, they will call it ease and be right. Sometimes the echo returns as contradiction. A friend you trust tells you the truth you had been avoiding, and your self-respect makes space for it rather than staging a defense. You adjust course without making the story about your nobility. The change is quiet and enduring. People who keep company with you learn that repair is possible without ceremony. The feminine, in particular, notice when a man can be corrected without recruiting contempt to save face. Contempt is a small god that demands many sacrifices. You starve it, the temple closes, everyone is safer. The echo does not flatter your ego forever. It educates your circle. Those nearest you start using please and thank you on tasks that culture demotes as invisible. They start ending on time because they watched you leave while tenderness still had posture. They start declining with kindness because they watched your no expand respect rather than shrink affection. They start holding eye contact at a human distance because they saw your gaze honor a person without turning them into content. Soon you are not alone. You are surrounded by a climate that begins to keep you as faithfully as you keep it. This is the quiet glory of chosen ones. They build weather systems bigger than their personalities. Self-respect refuses to outsource holiness to circumstances. Even when you travel, you keep the rituals that tell your soul what day it is. Small prayers under your breath before you enter a room, the glass of water that interrupts adrenaline, the check-in with the person licensed to tell you you're drifting. The early ending that saves tomorrow. In hotel lobbies and borrowed kitchens, the echo continues because the source remains calibrated. A woman notices that your tenderness is not a local custom but a way of being. She does not have to hire vigilance when the scenery changes. That is an intimate miracle. There will be pressure to spend this capital loudly, to let the echo become a brand, to convert your boundaries into scarcity so desire sharpens itself on the illusion of access. Resist the carnival. Let your self-respect remain a song sung at the volume truth requires, not at the volume marketing rewards. The rooms that matter will hear it anyway. They will arrange themselves to your pitch. Invitations will arrive phrased as relief. We work better when you're here, we laugh cleaner, we leave earlier, and somehow love more. None of this needs a press release. All of it needs a keeper. Be that. And when the echo returns as intimate want, receive it without surprise and without superiority. The attention arriving is not a trophy. It is a testimony that you have made life more livable where you stand. Say yes only where your integrity can carry the weight of tomorrow. Say no where your peace would be spent beyond prudence. Bless every person you cannot continue with by leaving the room cleaner than you found it. Let those who stay find what they suspected. That your respect for yourself is the reason they are safe to be fully themselves around you. That is the deepest echo, the one that doesn't sound like a sound at all. It feels like a home finally remembering its own address. Chosen one, sincerity is the last wild fruit on a tree the market keeps trying to domesticate. It is not polished, it is ripe, it is not styled, it is sweet. It stains fingers in a way no glitter can imitate. And because so much of life now is lacquered to pass for living, the untamed taste of the real is in hot demand. You do not know yet how many have been fasting from the hollow sugar of performance until they stumbled into your garden and bit into a sentence that tasted like itself. They were startled that it dripped. They were startled that it nourished. They were startled that it did not require a caption to be true. Sincerity in you did not appear by accident. It arrived by attrition. You laid down the armor of irony because it was heavy and poor at stopping harm. You dismissed the strategy of charm because it could not carry tomorrow. You retired the stunt where a man says less than he means so he can never be caught in need. In their place, you practiced frictionless truths. You learned to speak at a temperature the heart can hold and to let silence finish thoughts your ego would have interrupted. You learned to say yes in a way the future could honor and no in a way the present could survive. These are not tricks. They are the craft of coherence. And coherence is how sincerity keeps from becoming a pose. The rare thing about your honesty is not its volume, it is its alignment. Your words do not pull one way while your hands tug another. Your eyes do not make promises your calendar can't pay. Your affection does not rent a stage it has no intention of sweeping when the play is over. Because the pieces of you travel together, people do not have to spend energy decoding you. Decoding is expensive. Relief is rich. The feminine especially feel the relief first in their bodies. A slow exhale, a shoulder that forgets to brace, a laugh that returns unforced. They do not call it sincerity at first. They call it ease. Ease is another name for unhidden things. In a marketplace where attention is a currency and captions are coin presses, your refusal to inflate yourself reads like a miracle. Sincerity does not argue with mirrors, and it does not negotiate with applause. It accepts the contour of what is and improves it where it can be improved, slowly, with the patience of seasons. You do not perform remorse, you practice repair. You do not perform desire, you practice consent. You do not perform generosity, you practice proportion. Sincerity is not allergic to beauty, it is allergic to extraction. It refuses to spend another person to purchase a moment. This refusal is why the rumor of you keeps crossing rooms before your name does. There is a humility and sincerity that is not self-erasure. You do not bow to be seen as small. You bow to let grace pass through. You can say I am proud of that without erecting a shrine, and you can say I missed it without calling a jury. You can let someone else's excellence be an anthem and not a threat. You can stand still when praise arrives, lift it with two hands, and set it down where it belongs. The chosen ones are recognizable by this choreography. They are never caught trying to look humble. They are often found making room. Demand collects around men who can make room, because life is crowded with the performances of those who cannot. The rarer practice, chosen one, is to keep sincerity when it costs you something that can be measured. Sincerity will make you slow when the room is urging speed. It will make you specific when the room is buying fog. It will make you end the evening before adrenaline tricks kindness into overspending. But this fidelity returns you to yourself without debt. And people learn that being near you does not require hiring vigilance to interpret you. A woman will leave your company with all of her time still hers, all of her softness still hers, all of her strength untaxed by your need for narrative. She will call that experience desirable, even if she never uses the word. She will try to book it again. Sincerity does not mean exposure without discretion. You keep confidences because you know the difference between sharing and spending. You understand that privacy is architecture, not secrecy. You practice the sacrament of context, speaking truths where they can do good and withholding where speech would become spectacle dressed as courage. The market cannot price this kind of judgment because it is not a product, it is a pledge. Every time you keep it, an unseen ledger credits you with a kind of interest that accrues only to the trustworthy. That compound trust is what you mistook for ordinary conversation. It is, in fact, demand-wearing work clothes. There is a kind of compliment sincerity gives that cannot be found in the aisles of flattery. You do not spray praise like perfume. You place it like a beam, specific, load-bearing, located. You tell her exactly what you saw her do, why it mattered, and how it changed the room. Suddenly admiration becomes architecture, not anesthesia. Suddenly beauty becomes buildable, not consumable. This is rare teaching. It moves desire from the fever of being seen to the warmth of being understood. Warmth is survivable. Fever is expensive. The demand for you grows wherever women are tired of paying. To keep sincerity, you keep the rituals that taught it to you in the first place. You begin with water before opinion so your tongue remembers kindness. You check with counsel before conclusion so your certainty remembers compassion. You end before depletion so tomorrow remembers it is loved. You refuse to transform your inner life into content so your soul remembers it is not a feed. These quiet fidelities do not trend, they till. Tilled soil is where miracles appear as sprouts. No one applauds dirt. Everyone eats from gardens. One day you will overhear what sincerity has done in rooms you do not enter. Someone will say, I didn't have to recover from him. Someone else will say, I told the truth faster because he does. These are the reviews you didn't know you were earning. Accept them as evidence that rarity still matters and that you have become a lighthouse without rehearsing light. Then keep the lens clean. The ships were never guided by your legend. They were guided by your alignment.